What is up, and welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. I'm your guy, Halsey Schider. Big thanks to MHM Publishing and the Vertical Helicast platform for making this podcast possible. I am joined by Keith Campbell today. Keith reached out via Insta, I think, right? Is it Insta?
Yeah. Yep.
And shared his insanity. You'll find out why I say that here shortly. And I thought, hey, this would be a good chat. So we've been talking back and forth. I've been really probably not very responsive. So Keith, thank you for. Was I responsive? I think.
You were responsive.
Right? Okay, good.
You were responsive. I think I was a little unresponsive for a little bit, but.
Oh yeah, for the record, Keith ghosted me. Okay. So it's
I
all
like
Keith.
to play hard to get just a little bit.
True. So I tell my sales guys for Helicopter, I'm like, hey, you got to play hard to get. You can't be too easy with it. No, Keith, it's great to have you on the show. This will be an interesting story and kind of a fascinating look at kind of your path, because your path is a little bit different than most other people. So thank you for taking the time to join the show. Where you're joining us from Utah?
I am right now. I'm in Reno, Nevada, because I'm on a work trip here. But yeah, I am from Utah. I'm from Spanish Fork, Utah. But I grew up in Oregon.
Oh yeah, you're a Grants Pass guy.
I'm a Grants Pass kid.
I have a slight tangent on Grants Pass. So growing up, big football nut, and played football as a little guy. My brother was really good at football. My brother's like the guy that came out of the womb and was naturally strong, had the aggression, and was just always good at sports. Yeah, I was decent, but I had to work really hard. Anyway, I was a ball boy for the high school team growing up. Our neighbor, Coach Colson, who's my godfather, great man. He hired me as a ball boy. It's a big deal. And we had a playoff game in Grants Pass. I was a ball boy at the time. And man, we went to this high school and it felt like we were at a small college. Had this amazing football field, this amazing stadium. Their culinary or their catering class, whatever it was called, cooked us this big giant meal for all the players. So, I don't know. Did you go to Grants Pass High School?
No, I went to. No, you're right though. Grants Pass High School is beautiful, and it was probably around that time it was brand new. I went to Hidden Valley High School just outside with all the Hick kids.
Okay.
The country.
The country folk.
Yeah, the country folk. I mean, we had sheep and cows and.
Nice.
At the school.
So they're the bougie, and you're the FFA type.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Very good. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what?
There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't like that school anyway. That's where I was going with that story. So.
No, it's a beautiful school though. Yeah, Grants Pass is a cool place to grow up.
So are you in Reno for helicopter work or for selling security systems?
Yeah, it's for Vivint, for selling security systems. So I've got a group of sales reps here that I meet with every now and then.
That's awesome. So
yeah.
One thing that I want to start with is that you started flight trading in 2014.
Yeah.
How old were you at that time?
I was 23.
23, so younger guy. And the school that you chose to go to had no financing options. Mm-hmm. And so you essentially took 4 years to get through school.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that negatively. I think that's actually kind of the key point that I want to talk about, that you didn't want to take on the debt, or you couldn't get the debt to accelerate that. So you kind of had to slog your way, pay as you go, work for a security company, which sounds like you still do.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, I've always wondered, I had financing. My trading took 2 years. I probably could have done it faster, but I was more interested in drinking and having a good time and being stupid and young.
Yeah. Which there's a place for that.
There's a place,
You got to get it out of your system, right?
I started young. Now I'm 35. I'm bald. I don't drink. Life is different now. But I guess what I'm getting at is 4 years is a long time to stretch it out.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, what was that difficult at times because of just recency experience? Was there times where you had to have pretty large gaps in between your flying? And how did you keep motivated to keep pressing hard? And, I would guess that I don't know what you're getting paid at the security company, but it probably, a couple flights probably drank up that paycheck pretty quick. So like, how do you
Yep.
keep that motivation?
Yeah. Part of what we would do is I would go out. It was summer sales. So we would go, I think my first summer we went to Savannah, Georgia, and I was there for 4 months. So I started at Utah Helicopter. I got my private license. And I realized, man, this is crazy expensive. There's no way I'm going to be able to do it, just by working an hourly job. You're right. The flight training just like drains the bank account. And so I got this job with Vivint, and it was a summer sales opportunity where I could go leave for 4 months and go work really, really hard and make hopefully a bunch of money. And so I went to Savannah, Georgia, went and did really, really good, thankfully, and then came home and had enough money to pay for my instrument, and then I got my instrument. And then right at the time my instrument check ride came up was about the same time I was ready to go for the next summer. So then I'd go for the next summer, and that one was, Cleveland, Ohio. We'd go slings, security systems.
Are you knocking doors?
A lot of it, yeah. A lot of it's knocking doors. Yep.
Good boy.
And then
I was a door knocker. I was a door knocker.
Really?
I was.
Oh man.
Yeah, not so long ago. I was flying air medical, and I always wanted to have like my own business or make more money.
Yeah.
Like that was always something that seemed exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was flying air medical, I started selling aircraft on the side because I helped a friend do it. And it was just something that it just wasn't, I wasn't putting enough time, effort, and energy into it to really make it worthwhile. And my wife ended up working at a roofing company. We're in San Antonio at the time. And I learned about the magical world of hail and damaged roofs from hailstorms, which we got every year in San Antonio.
Yep.
And I went to an event with her in that company, and they were like, the owner, Scott, he was there, and he was like, hey, we're passing out these cards and we're setting up appointments and whatnot. I'm like, I bet you I can get more appointments than your sales reps because I'm cocky like that. Mm-hmm. And he was like, okay, let's see. And I did. And so then at that point I started, doing that. So I sold roofs for almost 2 years.
Oh, and I had no idea.
All that was door knocking. And that was, actually a path that I was like this close to doing forever. That was going to be my forever thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, man, I left helicopters and that was going to be my forever thing. And I just couldn't. I was like, man, I can't imagine myself being happy doing this. Even though I was making a lot of money and the potential of having like my own franchise or whatever, I was like, I got to be around helicopters. And so I started Helicopter, which I had already started as Aircraft Brokers of Texas, rebranded, and figured if I went soup to nuts in it, put all of myself into it, maybe something good would happen. But anyway, I digress. I have a lot of respect for people that knock doors. Knocking doors isn't easy.
No, it is tough.
It's not for the faint of heart. So you get through your training. Takes 4 years to get. So 2018, you finished training 2018.
Yeah.
And you're at Utah Helicopters.
Yep.
This is where the story gets a little weird to me. Is at what point did you think it was a good idea to then buy the flight school? And how did you go amongst that? How does one buy a flight school?
Well, yeah. So I started training. I started instructing at Utah Helicopter, and I just really loved it. Like I really love training. I love instructing. And I really just fell in love with Utah, and I love Utah. And so, and at the same time, the opportunity at the security company, Vivint, had just gotten better and better and better and tougher to leave. The golden handcuffs is what I call them, they lock you in. So I was just constantly in this, what do I do? Do I just go all in with the helicopters? Do we go, do the Maverick route? Do we do EMS? Do we move across the country? Or is there an opportunity here? And I always loved business, and I always wanted to own some kind of helicopter company. And so right around that time where I was, right around that 1,000-hour mark where you got to make that decision, the owner of the company of Utah Helicopter, the flight school, he comes to me and he says, hey, I'm looking to retire. I'm pushing 60. This is a lot for me. I've got it to the point where I can get it we need some young energy to take over. And would you be interested in buying the flight school? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Yeah, I'm totally interested. So then we go down the road of, getting evaluations done. And this is all stuff I'd never done before. And this was a whole, another world, and buying aircraft and pricing them out and financing, and how do you obtain financing, and is it owner financed or whatever. So anyway, that's kind of how that started. And then we went back and forth for like a year and a half.
Yeah. You guys beat each other up pretty good or what?
No, actually we're still good friends to the toughest thing was trying to find financing on a flight school.
Sure.
That was the toughest part, and SBA loans and going through that with a bank. And it ended up, which was really cool, is I got financing available. But then my wife and I kind of, at that point, were like, I don't know if we're going to do it. So we kind of pulled out of the deal. And then I went out for another summer at Vivint. At the end of that summer, the owner calls me, says, hey, we're sweetening the deal a little bit. We're going to make it a little bit, we're going to do some owner financing. We're going to make a little bit better interest rate. We're going to do a little bit of interest only payments for the first, so it made it doable for us.
That's awesome, man. That's really, I let in with this comment of insanity.
It's insane. Yeah.
And it is insane, because, at that time, how much flight experience did you have when kind of by the time the purchase finished?
1,000 hours.
1,000 hours, like a low time.
Yep.
Low time helicopter guy.
Yeah.
And something that I've learned outside of just flying every day and being in my sales world, I've learned a crap ton more about helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
Things that I never knew about helicopters, especially when it comes to like value and how do you value helicopters. And but even beyond just that, I mean, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
And so, what has been amazing about this opportunity and what has been scary?
Oh, it's horrifying, to say the least. I mean, you have 14 or 15 aircraft in the air every day with instructors and students, and sometimes they're solo students. And it's like anything we all know that if you fly helicopters or planes, because we also have 7 planes, it's like, it's so easy for something to go wrong. And so we're constantly I can't relax because there's, what's going to happen.
Well, hopefully you have good insurance.
Yeah, we got good insurance. Yeah, we got good insurance, but, and we do things to mitigate that, and our instructors are really safe, but at the same time, it's always in the back of your head, so that's the scary part. What we've loved about it is the freedom. So owning aircraft and owning helicopters gives you the freedom. Like, every now and then my wife and I, we hop in the R-44 and we go fly up in the mountains, and that you can't do that in a lot of companies, right? Or just instruction alone. It's like Moab is an hour and a half away. We go down and we fly around Moab. It's like, hey, you need some cross country time? Let's go,
That's awesome.
And being able to do that. And you can't do that. I know I haven't flown EMS, but I don't think that's happening in the EMS world where you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go and what you want to do. And
you talk about it all the time. I don't know if you've heard me say it on the show, but
yep,
that's like my thing. It's like, hey, look, I know that by the time you have 1,000 hours, you want to be done teaching. You're over it, whatever. But I try to tell people, hey, look, it's the only job that you get the keys to the helicopter and you just go.
Yep.
And if you have enough students, man, in the morning you're flying in off airports. In my case, flying to the West practice area and doing amazing off airport opportunities, in the Pacific Northwest. And then my next block, I'm flying across country, and I'm landing on the only public heliport or one of the only public heliports on a building in downtown Portland. And then I'm doing full down auto rotations on my next flight. The list goes on. It's like this. It's something that it's easy to take for granted, but I get that people want to move on. What is your take as a flight school owner on? Because I've seen both. I went to a flight school and worked at Hillsborough, and essentially we had a bit of a policy: like you hit 1,000 hours, see ya, like go. You you know, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, move on.
And I have other experiences of pretty well-respected flight schools. One in particular that I'm thinking about, where the owner takes like particular issue and a little bit of a offense when a CFI decides to move on from getting paid whatever he's not getting paid as a CFI.
Yeah.
So I guess two-part question. Knowing the struggle of not making a ton of money as a CFI, have you done anything with your CFIs to kind of sweeten that pot? And what do you want for your CFIs? Do you want the longevity, or do you want to try to keep kind of a consistent open door?
That is a great question because, I think I have a unique approach because I was an instructor for 2.5, almost 3 years, you know. Well, I still am an instructor, but it's like getting that hourly paycheck is really tough. And so when we took over, that was the goal, is to make it a little bit more sustainable for instructors at the school. How do we do that? How do we do it where the school can still make money? Because there's not a huge margin at all. And so we implemented, as soon as we took over, it's the salesman that I guess, like, we implemented some bonuses where, you know, if an instructor was there early, stayed late, they worked, I think it's 37 hours in a week, they get an extra $5.
Look at you! You're setting up some KPIs on the helicopter flight instructor side.
Helicopter flight instructors, yep. And those are the guys who are going above and beyond, and girls, female instructors. But it's the guys that are going above and beyond, they're getting an extra $5 on their pay for that week if they're hitting 37 hours of billable hours. So we did that.
Extra 5 hours, like total, or 5 hour, like $5
per hour that they
per
work.
hour. Okay, that's
$5
good.
per hour. Yep.
I was gonna say $5, bro. Like that's not that good.
No. $5 per hour of every hour that they work that week, and then and just creating opportunities for them outside of instruction, because we also do some commercial work. We do some photo flights. We do some cherry drying. And that seems to break it up, right? And I push all of our instructors to become double I's, because if you're a double I and you're instructing you're teaching instrument, it breaks it up too, because you're doing these longer flights. So it makes it more doable. And then we have a few instructors, I handpick some instructors that we want to make. Like, I recently just hired, you know, like an assistant chief who is probably going to be there for a few, like, he's at 1,000 hours right now. He just interviewed at Maverick. Doesn't really want to leave Utah. Loves flying around Utah. Actually loves instructing, which is pretty unique. And then, and so we ended up giving him an opportunity to maybe stay for 3 or 4 or 5, maybe for the rest, you know, his career.
That's awesome, man.
Or at Utah Helicopter.
I think about this a lot running a business myself.
Yeah.
Is like this idea of longevity.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my highest level of education is 12th grade. You know, graduated high school, went pretty much straight to flight school.
Yep.
I don't know much about, you know, everything that I've done in business has been trial and error, and still learning every single day. Cool things are happening. My helicopter team is growing. We're seeing, you know, great growth every single year, even in years like last year that are hard economic years. So we're doing something right. But, you know, I always had this thought of like, man, you look at big companies and even medium size and even some smaller companies, and it seems like business owners at some point forget how it all works. And they forget that, you know, they start looking at people as liability, which it is, right? It's an expense, guaranteed, it's coming out, whatever, you know, no matter what. But if you have the right person, then I feel like that has to be an investment. Like, it's not a liability. It's maybe the best investment. The best investment that I've ever made. I have investments. I have a vast portfolio. We have real estate. We have money in the market. The best investment I ever made was in myself.
Yep.
And then the continual best investments that I've made are with the people that have chosen to come and work for me. I invest in them, and with time, energy, effort, and money. And I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but it's like, man, if as business owners, you just took better care of your people and looked at them as investments and not liabilities, then maybe the longevity would actually pay off, you know? And the flight instructor world has boggled me because, you know, here's a place where I spent $80,000 15 years ago to learn how to fly. Still paying that off, by the way. And the second I finished training, I had to pay my student loan. $750 a month is what I owed.
Yep.
A private student loan from Sally Mae. That dirty, dirty little Sally Mae.
Dirty Sally.
and I guess I'm rambling, but the point is that I couldn't pay that. In fact, I defaulted on it for 12 straight months because I was getting paid $15 a flight hour, right? And maybe had one or two students. It's just like this crazy idea. How can you go and fly a helicopter and teach someone in a very dangerous environment, some very highly skilled position, and get paid $15 an hour? So I hope that more business owners like yourself are going the extra mile at taking care of CFIs, because I think that's a very backwards part of our industry right now.
Yeah, and I think it's just the way it's been done. And so I am the same as you, where I'm trying to innovate and try to come up with new ideas to make it more profitable, and come up with ways that we can use the helicopters in ways that can be more profitable so we can pay these guys a little bit more. Our average, we start our instructors at $25 an hour, which I think is, at least in Utah, I mean, we're paying around the most. And that's not including any of the bonuses that they can earn. And then they can earn, I mean, we've got a few guys that have been with us, and they're going above and beyond and double I's, and they're making $30 an hour. And so and I think that if we can get, like, we're in the works of a 135, we're pushing to grow the tour side, because on the tours we can be a little bit more profitable so that we can end up paying everybody a little bit more so they stick around. Because I am like you, man, and I really feel like the industry that's just how it's been done, pushing the CFIs out, go get another job. And I think that has to be done to a degree so that we have new room to hire new CFIs, because we always want to be able to hire our own people and have that opportunity for them. But I'm like you and want to find opportunities for them to move in within the company. And that's what we're trying to make happen.
I want to talk all about it, but first we're going to take a quick sponsor break.
Bell is proud to sponsor Vertical Helicasts and their vision to hold meaningful mission, safety, and best practice conversations in the helicopter industry. The lessons learned from these conversations will undoubtedly shape the future of both new and veteran helicopter operators.
All right, I'm talking with Keith Campbell. Big thanks to our sponsors out there. Keith, this is a fascinating story. To kind of go back to what we were talking about, the CFI and getting paid, and I kind of disconnected with the rates. I think my buddy who recently is working at a flight school locally to where I'm at, I think he told me the pay, and I think that you're doing a little bit better than that school as well, and that's a pretty well-known operation. So that's neat to hear. I kind of hear this consistent thing in the industry of like, oh, we got to get more people involved. We got to get, more. We're losing pilots. We're losing mechanics. And like, we talk about it, but then no one does anything about it, right? Pilot pay across the board is not great. Why are all these people leaving the helicopter industry and going to the airlines?
Yeah.
Well, because it's a freaking financial gain of, 100%.
It's not because they want to fly planes. That's for sure.
Exactly. It's because they have kids and a wife or a husband, and they want a financial set future. My last year at Air Medical, I made under six figures, and I don't want to sound ungrateful for that, but I'm flying a single engine helicopter into dark places at 3 a.m, pretty tired,
A lot of risk. Yep.
You think we could just step up a little bit.
Yep.
And so my rally call, if this platform allows me anything in the future, is to continue to advocate for pilots, mechanics, because we talk about wanting more people in the industry, but how do we expect people to be in this industry if we're not going to treat them well? Yeah. Like, we're not going to pay you well, and we're not going to support your good decisions, and so maybe that's a part where the industry's gotten a ton better. The safety culture is really, companies are finally, especially the bigger companies, are finally starting to put their money where their mouth is and not just talk about safety, but actually doing things to implement safety. But I think pay is still a big issue. So I'm glad to hear that you're that you're trying to push something different, and you're doing it as a small business at a flight school in which margins can be very difficult. What is your helicopter fleet that you're operating?
So we have 4 R-22s. We've got 3 R-44s. We just added an R-66. That's the helicopter fleet. And then we have 7 planes, some Pipers,
Nice.
Diamonds, Cessnas.
Busy guy.
We're busy.
Are you 61, 141, both?
141. We do both, but yeah, we're 141. But you know, anybody that the 61 works better for, they're going to save some money. We can run them through the 61. We're not necessarily linked up with a university, so they have to do the 141.
Is that a future plan? You know, I know that a lot of flight schools have gone towards, you know, linking up with a university so they can essentially then, you know, start intaking VA students. Is that something that you've thought of?
Yeah, I would definitely entertain the idea of it for sure. I do think that it limits the way you can pivot your business and the freedom that maybe you have within, because then you have a lot of policies that come with being linked up with a university of some sort. I'm not sure. I've never done it before, but it seems to be that way. And we want to be able to move and pivot and take opportunities that come our way whenever we want to. And we're not hurting for students right now. We've got a wait list. So
that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah. Talk about funny policies. Moved to Central Oregon. You're familiar, right? You know Redmond.
Yeah. Yep. I actually went to school at Central Oregon Community College, and that's where I flew. My first helicopter was at Leading Edge in Bend.
Nice.
Yep. That's where I had my first discovery flight.
Yeah, so Leading Edge right down the road. Great operation. I got no qualms on Leading Edge. Travis, one of the owners, is a friend. He's a good dude. A funny policy outside of their control of being connected with the university is, you know, I moved here about a year and a half ago. And I'm like, man, it would be great to, you know, fly a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe I could do stage checks for these guys, you know, just a couple. I don't want to do a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But like, you know, once or twice a week, go fly for a few hours. Man, that'd be awesome. And so I'm talking to them and they're like, yeah, that's great. You know, let's do it. You know, hey, by the way, what's your college degree? Just, we got it. I'm like, oh, I don't have a college degree, you know? And they're like, oh, well, unfortunately, because it's a 141 school associated with a university, their instructors are actually required to have some type of degree, you know, either an associate's or a 4-year. And again, no knock on Leading Edge. Great school, great operation. But I think it highlights your point that there's constraints, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I thought that was interesting. Like, oh yeah, you know, the 15 years of helicopter experience that I have, you know,
doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
Like we can give, you know, Brad Pitt an honorary doctorate, you know, but we can't, you know, can't push me in, you know? So, you know, it's interesting. And, you know, I think the VA's program has changed drastically. There's a lot of schools, one in Utah, actually, that took advantage of the VA program. And I think that ruined it for a lot of good operators. And so there's a greater magnifying glass now. And part of the issue is the VA and the government just wasn't paying attention. It seems like, you know, they were, you know, the loophole.
They let it go too far.
They did, you know.
And then they come in with their audit every 10 years and realize, holy cow.
Whoops. Yeah.
Whoops. We got to shut this
that was a pretty
down.
Damning article. You know, the LA Times released a big article on that. Man, it's been several years now, but that took people out of business. And I know the VA program has changed. So what you talked about, you just bought a 66.
Yep.
Weird. I don't remember talking to you about buying a 66.
Well, so it's I have a partner on the business, but he just ended up buying the 66, and we're going to lease it from him. We're in that right now. We're just figuring it all out, adding it to the insurance.
That's cool. Yep. I just actually helped a guy buy a 66 in Utah. I don't think it's your partner though. I feel like I would know that by now.
Yeah, it's a red R66.
It's a red one. Okay, this one is black and red.
No,
so different.
The wire strike kit on it.
Oh, nice. We actually talked about the wire strike for this client.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's putting in autopilot. It's up in Canada right now. It's unregistered. Got overhauled in Canada.
Yeah.
Now it's at Eurotech Canada doing a completion. I begged and pleaded with the owner of Eurotech Canada, Haas, to accept Robinson aircraft in his prestigious non-Robinson hangar. And he's coming around to it, and actually,
Okay.
so they're doing some cool reupholstering. They're doing the autopilot, the wire strike prevention kit, over $80,000 for the provisions and everything. So my client, private owner, I'm like, dude, you're not really flying in the wire environment. Like, it's great to have wire strike. If you can have it, have it.
Yeah.
But like, you're flying, airport to airport at higher altitudes.
Yep.
I think that your good safety pilot decisions can kind of mitigate. So
yeah, it depends if you're flying airport to airport, if you're hunting coyotes, low level.
Exactly.
Might be a little different. Yep.
One of the questions that I have, you buy the business at 1,000 hours. Yep. So you have some experience at that point. You've definitely learned some things, right? I'm sure you had some moments in the helicopter with students that got your heart beating. So it wasn't like you're completely green.
Yep.
But 1,000-hour pilot is still a low time guy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have someone that's like I know you have assistant chief. Is there another pilot within your organization that's helped you be able to mentor some of these younger CFIs?
Yep.
And again, not to say that you can't. I'm just saying, like, having a higher time guy being able to mentor CFIs is probably a good thing.
It was huge. The owner of the company has stayed on at the company. He's a 3,000-4,000 hour dual given instructor. So he's stayed on at the company as for the 141 chief pilot role. So if I need him for anything, he is always willing to come down, help out, that kind of thing, for sure. So until we get, either myself or one of these other pilots that we have, get into that role. And some of these guys we have, like I'm too busy to be racking up hours every week, but a lot of these guys are, 1,100, 12, like they're getting tons of hours every month. So they're going to get there soon. And maybe we give them a better opportunity to stick around longer and they become, chief.
Sure.
Pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. What is, you said you had some expansion, you're working on a 135. Where are you at in that process?
On the wait list. Yeah, we're on the wait list.
I can sell you one right now, bro.
Yeah, there's a few people that want to sell me them. Yeah, I don't know. Some people have approached me trying to sell, well, it's a business that has a 135, right? Because you can't sell.
Exactly, you can't sell the certificate.
Yeah. So, but our company's doing just fine without a 135, and it would a 135 would just allow us to do a lot more, as you know, but it's not like we're not able to make money without a 135.
Sure.
And so
it's not like an urgent need.
Yeah, depending on prices of 135s out there, hey, I'm all ears, but if we're going to spend a bunch of money, I'd rather just, do it ourselves. And I kind of want the experience of doing all the, as crazy as that sounds, it's good experience to go through and draft all the documents and sit down with the FAA.
Well, you've never had a 135 job, right?
Never had a 135 job.
So, I would say the experience that you'll gain by setting up your 135 will be super valuable to you.
Yeah.
Because having the 135 certificate is now the opportunity of how do you not lose that 135 certificate and get yourself into trouble.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And that's the tricky part, because there's the FAA doesn't mess around. Like it's, they make it a process to get it because they want to limit numbers.
Yep.
And just on top of their already bureaucratic slowness. And then when you have it, like there's a microscope, right? For good reason. It makes sense of why they do that. So I think for you going in, putting together your op spec, putting together your GOM, you need to understand that, fully, right? Because then you got to preach that to your team and your 135 guys. So I think it's probably a good idea.
As much as I don't want to do the work, I do agree. It's probably going to be good in the long term.
That being said, I have some great contacts that are wonderful people in this industry that are very knowledgeable about that stuff, and would at any time be a phone call away to answer questions. So After the
That's
show, I'll
awesome.
connect you with some of those
That would
buddies.
be awesome. I would love it.
It's a complicated process. So you've effectively, for our listeners out there who are not maybe super familiar, obviously Part 135 would allow an operator to fly from A to B with persons or property for compensation hire. You can advertise that. You know, it's a big deal to have, but with that comes a lot of hoops to jump through just to get the certificate, and then to maintain and hold that certificate in good standing is then the second part of that. And I've been a part of the process a little bit from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, at this point, you've submitted like a packet to the FAA.
Yep.
Have they emailed you saying that they've received the packet, and have they given you a time frame? Like, hey, it's going to take 15 months.
Yeah, I mean, they send you an email. They say, hey, this is where you are on the wait list. And then every couple months, they update you with, hey, this is where you are on the wait list. And during that time, you're getting all your stuff together, because actually to get on the wait list, it's just one form. It's just an easy, simple form. And then in that process, you're getting all your packets ready to, you're prepping getting your drug. Well, we're already 141. We've got an LOA to do tours. So we already have a drug program, which is nice, because that's one of the hardest things is getting your drug program set up. And
it's very complicated.
It's a lot of work, and you have to have it right. We just had a drug audit from the FAA, and that, we learned a ton. And so, yeah, you're right. The FAA doesn't mess around. I just went through a 141, my first 141 flight school audit,
Nice.
Where we're diving into everything and all of the students' progress. We're diving into logbooks. We're, with 4 FAA guys sitting in my flight school, So
it's a new, gentler, softer FAA, right there.
It really does depend on who you're working with, though, because we have Andy Grover's our POI, and he is awesome. And
he'll be your POI for like the next 6 months, and then they'll give you a new one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but for now, trying to take advantage of having him. He's really cool dude. He's a helicopter guy too, so it always helps.
That's important. I was part of a lot of 141 audits at Hillsborough, obviously, and those were Hillsborough was a big school, and so there's we would prep for, I feel like a couple months leading up to the audit. It's really important. And again, the FAA doesn't mess around. They give you this 141 certificate, and then they really expect you, of course, makes sense to follow the rules and the regulations spelled out by 141. And actually, by and large, I agree with you. I think there's an idea of the FAA of like, these are big, scary people. And sometimes they can be. I've had interactions with the FAA that were unpleasant, unwarranted, and unneeded. But by and large, my experiences with the FAA have been really positive. And during those audits, our POI and his posse would come in, and they would, spend a whole week, in the conference room. Our goal we would try to leave them little things to find, little,
see if they could find it.
Oh, wow, great catch, man! God, I can't believe you got that. So
I did that on purpose.
But
I've noticed the difference. My wife helps me out a ton down at the school, and really, like, if I'm working out of town like this, she really runs it. And I've noticed when they're interacting with her, it is way smoother, way better. So I try to get her involved as much as I can. She just did the drug audit and went really smooth. So she's crushing it.
That's awesome. I will talk more about you and your school. We're just going to take a quick sponsor call.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
All right, we're here with Keith Campbell on the Helicopter Podcast. Again, Keith reached out via Insta, shared his story, thought it was pretty cool, and here we are now talking about it. So if you're out there and you think that you have a cool story or you know someone please hit me up at the Helicopter Podcast. You can find us on all platforms. Love to hear from you. Kind of the unexpected thing. I've talked about it before on the show. Like, I just started doing a podcast one day, and now people reach out, and it's been such an incredible way of networking. What are your students listening to the Helicopter Podcast, Keith?
Oh, I'm sure they are. Yeah, I'm
Good.
sure they are.
Yeah, I think it's podcasting, social media, YouTube. I think it's all really cool resources that I didn't have available to me when I was going through, flight training. And so I think it's, pretty cool and a cool resource, and I'm happy to be a part of it, and, grateful for being on the Vertical Helicast platform. I think it's pretty neat. Are you going to be attending HAI this year?
I was going to try. My schedule's crazy that week. We're going to a flight school conference next week in Vegas, and I may try to be able to be there for like one day, but it's going to be tough. But I would love to go. I've always wanted to go. I've never been. I've got lots of people I know that are going. One of my students is going. So
yeah, HAI is a good time, man. HAI is a cool place, and this episode will actually air after HAI, so we're talking about it now in the past. It was a great show. Yeah. We had a great time. We missed you there, Keith.
No,
HAI.
I may try to show up. Get one of my plane guys to fly me over to California.
Hell yeah, buddy! I think
cool.
having a presence, it's a great place to start to kind of help just make people more aware of who you are and who your business is.
Yeah.
And you never know, the conversations that you may have there that could lead to something. So I think it's definitely worthwhile. I know a lot of other flight schools, come and share their product. What, do you have any other, do you have connections with other flight schools, other people that have helped you through this journey? Or other than the previous owner, have you kind of been on a little bit of an island of a learning experience?
Yeah, I've been on an island for sure. I do reach out. I mean, I know Matt Hewlett, who runs Universal.
Oh, Huey.
Yep. I know Huey pretty well. Every now and then I'll reach out to him. I'll reach out to other instructors in the industry. Maybe if hey, what are you guys doing for your safety policies? Because I can always learn from them. And they're learning things every day out there and flying. And like, I know Eli Malloy pretty well. I had him come down to our flight school, and Eli did it, kind of went over his experience and talking about the networking thing. I thought it was really cool. Like, that guy is the best at networking, and that's how he's gotten, some of the jobs he's gotten in the industry. And he's constantly talking to people and social media, right? It's huge.
He's a networking fool.
Yes, exactly. And you were just talking about the helicopter industry, and maybe, it's a little bit tough, and maybe the salaries aren't what it is in the fixed wing world. But if you can open your mouth and get in front of the right person and network and go to things like Heli Expo and go, to whatever event you can to just increase your network, you never know who you're going to run into who needs this position, because most of the higher paying positions don't ever get to Indeed. They don't ever get to JS Firm. They're not there. They're, hey, my buddy, he knows this guy. This guy he's a perfect pilot for your opportunity. And that's how they get the job.
100%.
The really good jobs don't ever make it to the market where you're going to find them online and looking around. You got to network.
Yeah. And Eli's Eli's an example of someone that's really good at networking, and just also he's a good human. I don't know Eli very well. We've talked several times. I had him on the podcast.
Yeah.
And he just radiates like this niceness to him. This approachability, so, and I think it's good. People don't realize how small this industry. During our little commercial break, we connected a couple dots of people that we know, right? That are within the industry. Everyone knows everyone.
Yep.
And guys like Eli that have a pretty large platform and a really big following, especially on social media, the industry gets real small for someone like that in a good way, because people then want to come and engage with Eli and, offer him opportunities. And it's so true. It's just like sales, right? You gotta be willing to put yourself out there.
Yep.
And then you also have to kind of follow through on, what you say, right? So, go out, be a good person. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to hand your resume to someone, and then go and deliver and just start, building that good name. I think that there's some people in the industry that make the mistake of not minding their P's and Q's and, developing a bad name early. Man, that's not a good place to be.
Every interaction you have within this industry, I look at as a job interview, every single one of them, because it's so tight knit and you have to make sure you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's in every single instance and every single interaction you have with somebody, because you never know what that's going to lead to, who they know, who that person might know, and then they know you, and it just works out. And that's how the best jobs are found in the industry. It really is.
And I've always thought, like, if you feel like you're kind of on top, and you're employable and you're good to go and you're awesome, you have to kind of remind yourself, like, well, you're really not all that awesome. And B, like, I've had students, I remember as a CFI, I would have this image of myself of like, man, I have all this experience and, they're low time. They don't have that same experience. Now those same men and women are hiring managers at big operations.
Yeah.
People will leapfrog. People will surpass. You may have an opportunity for them and you help them. And then 3 years later, they may be in a different opportunity that you want.
Yep.
And you can then have them help you. I don't think I've ever got a job in this industry where I didn't have a friend of a friend who could help me get in. Right.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's the key part. The networking is the key part. And, it's good. I'm glad that your students and your CFIs are getting to hear that from other people like Eli, because you're right. Eli is kind of the king of it.
Yeah. And we just had a student who, one of our students, she's coming up, she's got her CFI check ride, and she decided to take an opportunity at Rotax as a SIC in a Chinook during the summers.
Cool.
She called me and asked me what I thought. Is it going to be more beneficial to come work at Utah Helicopter and instruct and gain the PIC time? Or, like, I really kind of want to do this. And I was like, look, if you really want to do that, I think what you're going to gain the most out of it is the network that you're going to gain in that industry, and those people that are in those seats, flying PIC in those helicopters. If that's the world you want to be in, is firefighting, I think that network is invaluable. If you want to take the summer to go do that, I would love to have you as a CFI, but there's always going to be a spot here. You might want to go do that for a little bit and then come back and instruct, because you're going to need the PIC time. You're going to need the experience. Yeah, you're going to need the instructor experience, and she knows that. But it's an opportunity for her to build her resume network, her network resume.
As long as, first off, it seems like she handled the situation correctly, right? Because most likely her first PIC employment opportunity would be with you.
Yes.
Instead of being sneaky and weird about it, the first person she talks to is you. So to me, like, that's the first thing that she did right.
Yep.
And I think it's cool. If you're listening to the podcast and you have an interest in this sector, especially utility, whether that's, construction, pipeline, power line, firefighting, getting into that early is not a bad thing. Obviously, you're going to enter the industry as an SIC, and you can work your way up kind of, from ground level, but you still need your PIC time. So being able for her to go and get that experience and then come back to you and get a PIC experience, she should be setting herself up to be in a pretty good position.
Super good position. Yeah. And she said, after the summer, I'm all in, she committed and I thought it was really cool that she talked to me about it.
There's value for students too with someone like that. She'll come back. She'll still be a lower time helicopter pilot, but she's going to gain some insight to the industry, because the real world is a little bit different than the training world. And, so being able to come in and connect dots of, like, hey, this is why we learn these fundamentals, because in the real world, it's actually the way that you got to do it. It's like this idea of, like, oh, the R-22 and the R-44, they have no power. Well, it's like, yeah, but when you
Neither
fly
does a 407
commercially,
that's
they're just
loaded
going to
up.
load it up. It's like, I've never flown a helicopter in a commercial environment that wasn't at max gross, full fuel on a hot day. It's just kind of the way it goes. And so I think that would be neat. Not to mention, it's cool. We need more females in helicopters, especially in the utility world. That's it's a very underserved market. So that's cool. What is your student population kind of male to female ratio?
We've had more females recently in the last probably year than we ever have. And I think a lot of it has to do with social media again and network and females realizing like, whoa, there's other females doing this. And they see a video of some, Mariah flying a Chinook in the fire industry. Like, that's cool, right? That's really cool. And so, we have, it's still, male dominant, but I'd say 15-20% of our students are female. Like,
that's incredible.
Definitely increased. Yeah.
That's really cool to hear. That's actually one of the questions I'm asking at Heli Expo this year is trying to get a pulse and a census on what it looks like for not just women, but other just diversities entering into the helicopter world. Because historically it's kind of a dominated industry of, males, more so white, so it's interesting to see. And I think it's, and there's nothing, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, that's just how the industry's been formed. Right. And there's a lot of, maybe there's some old codgers out there. I had a guest, episode that released, during the Women in Aviation, Jess Birch, who talked about how by and large her experience is great. She's treated well in the industry. People respect her because she's a good pilot. She does good things. A couple of the old codgers, maybe make some remarks or say things that are maybe not so appropriate. But by and large, I think the industry is shifting towards, trying to be a little bit more inclusive. We need more people. That's just the bottom line. We need really good maintainers. The how-to helicopter gal who does, the maintenance videos. I think that's big.
It's huge.
I think just a lot of people think that it's unachievable. Eli's talked about this before, this idea of first generation pilot, and now with social media, being a first generation pilot, well, you can go to Eli's Instagram and see, holy crap, look what this guy's done. And he had no idea how to get there. And he did it.
And you can DM him and be like, hey, how'd you do it?
You can send the guy a message.
Crazy. Yeah.
So it's like, it's super cool. And it's cool to hear that, that there's a little bit of a shift because we need people. At the end of the day, the workforce is dwindling and helicopters are pretty neat.
Yeah. We have 2 female CFIs and they're awesome. We just hired one and then the other one is one of our best instructors. So they're awesome.
My first instructor was a lady. She's great. I had never flown with a female instructor before. I had started with airplanes, so I had some flight experience and I was always with guys. And then her as my first helicopter instructor. And man, she was great. She, I think that men and women, again, pretty much fly a helicopter the same way. But I do think that there is an approach. There's a little bit of a different mentality for the most part. And not the stereotype, but there's a different approach. And I think for a lot of students, the approach that maybe a female instructor takes might be a little bit of an easier environment to learn in. And I've had female students that are great. I've had male students that are great. Male students typically seem to have a little bit more of the ego. Why can't I hover in the first hour? Women seem to be a little more forgiving on themselves, and they're maybe open to learn.
Yeah.
And they have a nice finesse. So yeah, I think it's cool, man. It's an evolving industry. And I think that social media has helped make it more inclusive. And that's neat to hear that you're seeing those kind of numbers, because that's pretty impressive. Are you guys, switching total gears, do you have your own in-house maintenance? Are you doing your own overhauls on your Robinsons? How does that all work?
We do. We're a Robinson service center, so we do our own overhauls. We've got 3 full-time mechanics. But that's a whole nother realm that, just like you talked about, it's tough to find like good mechanics. And it really is like, that is for me, the hardest part is finding good qualified mechanics, especially that can work on Robinsons. I mean, typically we're hiring somebody, we got to train them up, we got to send them to Robinson, pay them to get, certified. Then they come back because there's not a lot of good certified experienced mechanics in the industry. And if there are, a lot of times they're going to the airlines because they're paying them buku bucks to go work over there. But they love doing what they do at our school. I mean, they're building helicopters. I mean, we have a 22 completely tore down, and they're building that thing from the ground up. And I think they actually love it. It's just making that opportunity work for a good mechanic is kind of tough.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's hard. I was talking to my buddy Mike, who I've had on the podcast before. He's with SVT Aviation Maintenance, primarily Robinson helicopters. Not a service center. There's a service center right next to him, so he can't get the designation. But all he does is work on Robbies. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of his sentiment. He's like, man, it's hard for me as a small business to compete with Delta and American Airlines. And, like he doesn't blame the mechanics for going that route. But again, how do we fix that? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. In fact, I'm talking to people at Expo. I have the opportunity to kind of do a CEO series at Expo with all the OEMs and some other big companies. And that's one of my focus questions of is like the maintenance side. Like, how do we incentivize maintenance professionals to want to stick with the helicopter industry and not jump ship? It's really tough.
Yep. And it's all about just if the company is profitable and if they can become more profitable in what they're doing and the operations that they're doing, then they have their ability to maybe pay their mechanics a little bit more so they can stick around. Totally. And that's the solution is the company has to find ways and get creative and not get stuck in their old ways of, hey, we're just this old flight school. It's like to find ways to still be affordable, but also find ways to, be profitable so that you can share that profit with some of your guys and have them stick around long term.
100%. It's
I think that's the only fix.
It's a bit of a Rubik's cube, but I think it can be done. I think it starts with younger individuals that are innovative entering the industry, like yourself. Not that are our old timers, business owners. A lot of them do it really well, and they continue to do it great. There's some amazing flight school owners to this day that are still older guys, and they do things pretty good. But I think the new generation, the you and the me, we have the opportunity to hopefully kind of push this industry in a better direction, not just for pilots, but mechanics. For all aviation staff. So Keith, what a awesome conversation. Grateful for you to join just like that. We've talked for an hour, and I just I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate that. I can't wait to hear and keep up with you and what you're doing, what your progress is. For the listeners out there that maybe haven't started their flight school journey yet and they're considering flight school options, just give us your elevator pitch of Utah Helicopters. How they can find you and how they can get that process started.
Yeah, so they can find us at our website, just utahhelicopter.com. Instagram is Fly Utah Helicopter. And just give us a call, ask us all the questions. What's really cool and unique about our school is the location that we're at. In Utah, we're at 4,500 feet, which is, that's about the highest flight school in the country. There's maybe one or two other ones that are about that same altitude, but we are high DA, pushing the limit of these helicopters every day. It looks really good on a resume. And then we got two locations. We got one in Salt Lake and one in Spanish Fork. And we got Salt Lake International Airspace, so you get a lot of experience around that international class Bravo airspace. In Spanish Fork, it's all uncontrolled, but just 5 minutes north of it, 5 miles north of us is Provo Tower, so you can get the tower experience. And then just south of us is all public land, and we have just a big playground. And flying there, it's epic. I think you've flown in Utah before, but it is an epic place to fly. We've got the Wasatch Mountains, but it's also super challenging, and it has a lot of risks associated with it. And I tell our guys, every single day, it's like you have death traps all around you, so just be super careful. And it's an affordable flight school. I think our prices are really competitive in the industry. It's not a school that we have all these military guys at where, the VA is paying for most of their training. 90% of our guys are self-funded. We have financing available for them through Meritize, but yeah, we don't have a ton of the VA guys, so we know cost is a big deal, and we make that a high priority to keep it affordable in the training so that you are getting it done efficiently. And you're trying to get it done, hitting the minimums and becoming an instructor at 200 hours. We do our best to make that happen. I think we had one of our last instructors got through the whole program in $95,000, which
that's
is
awesome.
pretty, nowadays with inflation, it's pretty dang good. So
yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
And to our listeners out there, you have a lot of options when it comes to helicopter flight schools, and a lot of really good ones. And, just in my conversation with Keith today, don't not look at the smaller companies because they're smaller, right? Do your research, do your homework. One may even argue that a smaller operation is an operation where you may get even just a little bit more attention. You're not just another kind of number in a big system. So I think that's really cool. Utah Helicopters, check them out. It seems like Keith is doing good things. He's a little bit crazy for buying a flight school, but it seems like he has a good head on his shoulders. So Keith, thank you so much. To our listeners, thank you for listening to the Helicopter Podcast. Keep listening, keep liking, keep following, subscribing, and yeah, talk to you all soon. Keith, thanks so much.
You're
for
the
coming
man,
on.
Halsey. Thanks.
See you, buddy.
We'll see you. Bye.
Hey, podcast listeners. My name is Halsey Schider, and I'm the principal broker and owner of Helicopter. Helicopter is a new age, data-driven, helicopter-specific sales brokerage, bringing helicopter listings to new heights. At Helicopter, we utilize digital positioning, paid advertising, and our large network of industry professionals to move your helicopter quickly and efficiently. Unsure the value of your helicopter? Lucky for you, Helicopter offers a complimentary market evaluation. All you have to do is contact the team today. Are you ready to take your helicopter listing from Mayday to payday? Easy. Fill out the contact information below, and a Helicopter pilot agent will reach out shortly. Helicopter. List it, sell it, done.